It's reportedly been decades since a storm this powerful struck the region of Southeast Asia. And even though Typhoon Yagi made landfall in Vietnam last weekend, it's still causing problems, still threatening lives in the nation of 100 million people. Vietnam wasn't the only country affected. Yagi hit the Philippines last week as a deadly tropical storm. It strengthened as it moved west over the South China Sea, striking southern China's Hainan Island Friday with wind speeds of 143 miles per hour. That made Yagi the equivalent of a Category 4 hurricane capable of catastrophic damage. More than 400,000 people were evacuated from Hainan province before the storm made landfall. It had weakened to Category 1 strength, with winds of just over 90 miles per hour by the time it arrived in northern Vietnam. However, the flooding and landslides it caused there led to the loss of at least 155 lives, according to the nation's government. Dozens of others were still missing. Water levels in the Red River were rising as the week went on, threatening widespread flooding in the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi. That's not the only storm-related story we have in today's show. More's coming up in just a couple minutes. This is The World from A to Z. My name is Carl Azuz, and it is always great to see you. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris came face-to-face for the second time yesterday, attending a September 11th remembrance ceremony in New York City. It was a day after they took part in an American tradition of U.S. presidential debates. Those are not required by the Constitution, but they've been a fixture in American politics since the 1800s. The first presidential debate this year was on June 27th between former President Trump and current President Joe Biden. But after the Democratic incumbent's performance was widely criticized by Republicans, some Democrats, and many members of the media, President Biden reluctantly withdrew from the race on July 21st. He then endorsed Vice President Harris as his party's candidate. She received the support of Democratic delegates, officially became her party's nominee at its convention in August, and faced off Tuesday night in a debate against former President Trump, who'd become the Republican Party's nominee at its convention in July.
It's not clear if there's going to be a second debate before voters hit the polls come Election Day in November. Both campaign teams seem to suggest they'd be in favor of it, but can't seem to agree on much else after a fiery first meeting between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. In a wide-ranging debate, the two clashed over a number of critical issues, from reproductive rights.
We did something that everybody said couldn't be done, and now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade.
To immigration and border security.
Why hasn't she done it? They've had 3.5 years to fix the border.
What we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
To their visions of and for the country.
We all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward.
Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago.
In Philadelphia, I'm Lee Waldman reporting.
Word and out. During what decade did the most hurricanes make landfall in the U.S.? 1880s, 1940s, 2000s, 2010s. According to NOAA.gov, the decade that saw a record number of hurricanes and major hurricanes make landfall was the 1940s.
That's based on all the hurricanes that made landfall in America, not the total number of Atlantic-named storms. The single year that saw the most of those, 2020, when a total of 30 tropical systems were named. Francine is the sixth named storm this year. It formed Monday in the Gulf of Mexico, strengthened to Category 2 status by yesterday afternoon, and then rolled into Louisiana with Morgan City in its path. A Category 2 hurricane, according to the Saffir-Simpson scale, is capable of extensive damage, even though it's not considered a major hurricane. Roof damage, downed trees, power outages were expected, and there was a curfew in Morgan City to keep people inside and off the roads so first responders could come through. After landfall, Francine was expected to charge north through the middle of Mississippi and continue to weaken before arriving in eastern Arkansas and western Tennessee by Friday morning. On this date in world history. September 12, 2011 was when the National September 11th Memorial and Museum opened in New York City. That was the day after the 10th anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Complete coverage of what happened in those attacks is in yesterday's show at worldatoz.org. On this date in 1940, a pet dog fell down a hole in Lascaux, France. 4 teenagers went to get it back and discovered an extensive network of cave paintings believed to date back thousands of years. The Lascaux Cave Paintings are no longer open to the public, but the animals they depict have been extensively studied by archaeologists. And a Soviet space capsule named Luna 2 launched on this date in 1959. There were a lot of space launches going on back then, but Luna 2 became the first man-made object to land on the moon.
Where in the world? This place was founded by the Celts in the 3rd century BC. Today it's a world capital known as the City of Light. It was built on the banks of the Seine River. The answer is Paris, host of the 1924 and the 2024 Summer Olympics.
The closing ceremonies from the 2024 Paralympic Games, which wrapped up in the French capital early this week. They'd brought more than 4,000 athletes to Paris. With the Summer Olympics and Paralympics concluding a sports-stacked summer in the city, there's a debate taking place over the Olympic rings on the Eiffel Tower. Should they stay there permanently?
I think it's an eyesore. It's something different, but the Eiffel Tower has been there for years and years, and I don't think it needs to change.
These Olympic rings could soon be a permanent fixture.
I think it's okay for now, but not forever, because it's a historical monument, so.
For me, the tower is amazing, it's so beautiful, but with the ring, look a little bit different, so I think it's not very aesthetic,
The city of Paris owns the Eiffel Tower, and officials say the decision is up to them.
This event was a massive success, probably all around the world, and it will changing Paris forever in a good way. Visually, when you will be in Paris, remember that this moment was a key in the history of Paris, so that's why we choose that symbol.
For descendants of its creator Gustave Eiffel, they don't want his legacy to become an advertising platform.
So Gustave Eiffel is my great-great-great-grandfather. We were very happy to have the rings during the Olympic Games. It was a great moment, but the problem is the permanent. The Eiffel Tower was never meant to be a billboard for any other company or brand, no matter how prestigious it may be.
If the plan does go ahead, it won't be these rings, but lighter ones designed to resist the harsh winter winds.
There's a historic mining town in Arizona named Jerome. There are communities in Pennsylvania and Illinois named Jerome, and there's a city in Idaho with that name that we're visiting right now to shout at the Tigers of Jerome High School. Mr. Talamante's class is watching from the Gem State. We also have some Tigers checking out our show from the Evergreen State of Washington. Mrs. Burris's class, great to see y'all at Lewis and Clark High School. And from what's undoubtedly a boon to the Hoosier State, we've got Boonville High School watching today. The Pioneers of Boonville, Indiana are charting new territory from Mrs. Ransom's class. This would be really hard to put together unless you're a farmer. Justin Lehman is though, and he recently asked his girlfriend Haley Schmidt to go flying in North Dakota.
I'm pretty gullible, so I was like, yeah, let's just go look at some crops and go on a flight. I don't know. I didn't really think anything of it.
But she had something pretty big to think about when that plane flew over a soybean field where Justin had personally cut his proposal. You just never know where romance will crop up when someone says, hey, where have you soybean all my life? This thing has really caught on, and while it might sound corny, what are we waiting for? Let us get together and sow the seeds of love. I mean, how about them apples, y'all? I'm Carl Azuz, proposing you come back tomorrow for the world from A to Z.